Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'll give a brief introduction and then I'll let Freddie do his thing. Frederick Shegog is the founder and CEO of The Message LLC. He is inspiring, educating, and creating healthy lifestyles for all as a motivational speaker. Dumpster diving, panhandling, and drinking were once everyday activities for Freddie. Despite a decade of alcohol abuse and time spent homeless, Freddie transformed himself into a graduate with high honors. As a motivational speaker, he is on a mission to help others combat substance use disorder and mental health, experienced in creating and facilitating workshops to address the community's needs in areas of collegiate recovery, substance use disorders, and mental health. He is changing the way colleges serve and educate students in recovery and dealing with mental illness. Freddie was recently selected as the opening keynote for the Missouri State Health Impact Summit. He was voted as Philadelphia Region's Black Men Icon of 2020. Freddie was selected to the All-State PA academic team, where he received a full paid tuition scholarship to Westchester University. He is enrolled in the Honors College studying communications. And lastly, he was featured on Fox 29's segment For Goodness Sakes show with Bill Anderson. To learn more about Freddie, you can visit his website at themessagellc.com. Welcome, Freddie, and thank you for coming back to join us today.
All righty. First and foremost, let me just say how grateful and humbled I am to have this opportunity. It's always a blessing to be able to come on any platform and share my blessings and how education has thoroughly changed my life. Christine has been a family member, a mentor, a friend. Words just cannot describe how grateful I am for you. Thank you. When I first met you, I didn't believe. And you helped me to believe, and I'm forever grateful for your support. And that was day one of meeting you, and I've been a fan ever since. Thank you to Montgomery County Community College, the Act 101 program, the whole Gear Up, everything, everybody here. I appreciate that you wanted me back. It means more than you know. You know, I need to be honest, like, this wasn't the plan, okay? Like, I want you to understand very, very well that I had no plan to come on this platform and tell you about how good education's been to me, how blessed I've been, the things that have been going on. You know, I'm sitting here listening to her read this biography, and I'm thinking, like, I remember when I didn't even have an ID. Like, I remember dumpster diving. I remember panhandling. Like, I remember the smell of the dumpster. So whenever I hear those things, it just reminds me how fortunate and how blessed I am to be where I'm at, right? So one of the things I tell people is, when you hear my story, please understand you're seeing the glory, but you need to know the story that led up to that. You need to understand, like, what type of person I was before I entered education, which has allowed me to do some things. So before I get into the schooling and the things that I'm doing now and the things I've been blessed to do, let me back this up so that you understand exactly where I came from. I'm a person, by God's grace, I will have 5 years sobriety, June 21st, 2016 is the day that I stopped using drugs and alcohol. And this year I will celebrate 5 years of recovery. Miracle, okay, like pure miracle. You need to understand I've been to 20 rehabs. You need to understand I've been in like 15 psych units. My first psych unit, I was 12 years old, suicidal ideation. Okay, so I didn't start with this grand plan of, you know, enter college and write and get publicized and, you know, go to conferences and get to meet people like Miss Christine Morris and come to Montco and speak. No, that's not how this started. Okay, you need to understand addiction and just overall mental health, so that help you understand my walk and how I entered college. So my addiction started when I was like 9 years old. Okay, the first time I ever got high in my life, I was 9. I was getting high off my asthma inhaler. A lot of people think addiction is drugs and alcohol, but really drugs and alcohol are just a symptom, right? So growing up, I had a lot of issues with self-esteem. I had a lot of issues with bullying. I had a lot of issues with things going on in my home, but the way I masked it was you thought everything was okay, but it wasn't. Fast forward, I have a horrible run with addiction, terrible, which led me 5 years ago, I was downtown, dumpster diving, panhandling, begging for change. Now, one would think when you start that way, that's pretty much how it's going to end. And people ask me all the time, how have you gone from that to a national keynote speaker, to a published author, to a honor student, to a a person who is asked to address the community with these issues? How have you gone from that? And here's your answer: God and grind. I was supported by a village of people that were in education and other spaces that allowed the best out of me to come out. They believed in me. Okay. And I'm gonna give you a tutorial on how to do that. Now, the great thing about education is that we have the power and the ability to help students see what's in them before they can see it. We have the ability to help people believe in themselves before they can actually do it. I tell people all the time, the greatest gift about knowledge is the ability to share it, right? So I'll never forget, and I need you to understand my bottom to understand how far it's gone. 5 years ago, I'm downtown. A man wakes me up, African-American brother. I don't know his name. I wish I did. I owe him a steak. I swear to you. He woke me up and he said to me, he said, brother, I called the ambulance. I said, listen, I am a failure in life. I'm homeless. I'm panhandling. I failed at life. It's over for me. I am a mistake. I am not meant to be here. He looked at me and he said, oh no, I called the ambulance. They're on their way. You ain't dying today. He gave me a pillow and he gave me a bottle of water. I'll never forget it. He calls the ambulance. The ambulance takes me to treatment. And I'm in the basement of a treatment facility. And this was my low for me. And when I'm in that facility, I'm going through the underwear and I'm going through the clothing. I'm picking out the stuff that isn't stained. And I remember how humbling that was and what it made me feel like. And I told myself, I'm never going to feel like this again. Fast forward, I do the treatment I need. I do about a year in treatment. I get out. I walk on the campus at Delaware County Community College. I'll never forget it. Day one on campus. Now listen, now understand, I stopped drinking and stopped using drugs, but I am an addict in my brain. I walk on campus, I got Green Bay phone, Green Bay case, I got Green Bay sneakers. Listen, my wife packs me a lunch. She writes me a note, have a good day, Freddie. I'm like 30-something years old. I'm walking around campus like, hey, people, what's happening? My name's Freddie, right? I have no idea what I'm getting into. I have no clue what school's about. And I know, listen, looking back, all the people that are family, I know they're looking at me crazy. I walk around like, hi, my name's Freddie. I'm in sobriety and I take mental health meds and how you guys doing? And I'm just all happy. I'm walking around. I couldn't believe it. I'm at campus. I'm going to the coffee station. I'm just running around crazy. I'm like, oh, you guys got a library? How do I get a library? I'm just happy to be in college. What we need to understand as educators is everybody that's walking through that door got a story. Everybody's walking through that door is coming to college for a reason. Everybody that's walking in there is in search of something. Well, I can tell you with a student like me, I wasn't coming to college in search of good grades. I wasn't coming to college in search of, publications and conferences. I was coming to college in search of life. That's what I needed. I came there to get everything I could get out this building. So when I talked to you and you said you're a provost or you're a president or you're something, I looked at you with stature and esteem because to me, you were everything because I didn't have nothing, right? So I walk on campus and they take me up to the placement test. And Montgomery County, you're a community college, you know this very well. The good old thing, a placement test. So I get to the placement test, right? And I'll never forget, I'm at the placement testing and they had me take my test. And I get done and they said, Frederick, congratulations, you scored at the remedial level courses. Now, when they say this to me, now mind you, I've been at 6 different schools, right? And drugs and alcohol did a number on me and I didn't really, my bearings weren't great with the books. And I said, yay, I'm all excited, right? I made the remedial classes. I'm calling my wife, I'm like, wifey, I made remedial classes. I come to find out remedial is the lower level you can start at. I walk on the bus, my head down, sad, right? I get home, I'm crying and stuff. And my wife says to me, what are you crying for? I said, I can't do it. I'm 38, man. 30, well, at the time I was 30, 34. I said, listen, man, it's over. I'm a failure. I said, I'm gonna have to get me a regular job. And that's just what it is. I'm not built for college. I'm not smart enough. Like these kids are 18, they're young, they're just vibrant, they're all technology. No, I'm not good enough. She said, Freddie, go to class. I said, okay. So I enter class, English 025. I'll never forget it. English 025 changed the national course of my life. I get an English 025. And the teacher says, okay, folks, I'm giving you an assignment. And this assignment is called identity. And I'm not grading you on grammar. I'm grading you on content. And I immediately raised my hand. I said, now, are you sure? She said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you all about my story. She said, good, Freddie, that's what I want. And now, mind you, I'm raising my hand every 5 minutes. What's this? What's this, right? Crazy. She gave me that. And I wrote in there about being homeless. And I wrote in there about digging out the dumpster. And I wrote in there about picking underwear out. And I wrote in there about how, I would eat when the lady from Dunkin' Donuts would put the donuts on top of the dumpster and I would take that. I wrote on there about panhandling. I wrote on there how I was downtown and I got spit on. I talked about that, right? Like I wrote about that stuff. And afterwards, she came to me after class and said, Freddie, there's life in this paper. We're going to get you published. I said, what's published mean? She said, don't worry. See, I want you to understand something. As educators and as faculty and as staff, it is our job to see in them what they can't. So when we see that, it's our job to pull it out. She saw in that paper that I had an ability. I just know how to professionally format it and to do it right. Thank God she made me believe. So she told me that. So, I'm searching for conferences and all that stuff. She tells me she got one, comes up, she finds a conference, I go to it. I go to the conference, it's at St. Joe's University, I'll never forget, Marginalized to Empower. And I'm on the conference and I'm walking around, I'm all happy. And when I get to the conference, I go to one of the breakout sessions. I checked everyone, I wanted to go all the sessions, I'm running in and out each one, right? And I get to the breakout session and the lady in there is talking about collegiate recovery. And I raised my hand. I said, yeah, my name's Freddie. We don't have a collegiate recovery program. She said, I have a editor at the Philadelphia Inquirer that's looking for stories. Do you have your story? I said, yeah, I got this paper on identity. I was all happy, right? She said, I want you to send it to me. Don't you know my first assignment in college in English, 025, ended up on the front cover of the op-ed section of Philadelphia Inquirer. The question is, how did this happen? It's simple. It happened because somebody in power and education saw something in me that I couldn't see. And they took that and they helped me get publicized. My point to us is that the greatest gift about education is we have the ability to transform lives. We have the ability to take a student that comes in at 34 years old, has mental health issues, is a person in recovery, right? Has all these different supports and challenges, and we can take his story and we can mold it and professionally make it look right, get him published and start him on his way. That first assignment started a motivational speaking company, which I now travel the country speaking on mental health and substance abuse. All because somebody took the time, all because somebody decided that they could see in me what I couldn't see in myself. So that comes out. I get a call from New Jersey, from a school in Cambria County Technical Schools in New Jersey. They asked me to speak to their faculty. I don't even know nothing about an LLC. I got to go Google LLC, figure out how to fill it out. And I'll never forget this. It's a Sunday afternoon. And I tell my wife, I said, I can't fill out this company. She said, why? She said, what is wrong with you? I said, Kim, I'm too scared. It's not going to work. And if I tell my story and da-da-da, she said, Freddie, fear nothing and hit submit. Let's go. And by the way, it's time to eat. And I was like, oh, I hit the enter button. Thank God I did. I sit here and it brings me back to, I didn't believe in myself, but the people around me did. Delaware County calls me. When I got published in the op-ed section, the president calls my advisor. My advisor says, the marketing department wants to meet with you. The marketing department at Delaware County Community College surrounded me. What they did was they started supporting me. They saw that I had a story. They saw that I had a talent. And they said, you know what, Freddie, we're going to uplift you and we're going to give you platforms. We just need you to do your part. Now think about this. Imagine if all of our students felt like they matter. Imagine if all of our students felt empowered. We use these big words, pedagogy, and we use these big words about, helping and all this academic jargon and all this stuff. All that stuff means, in layman's terms, is show we care. It's empathize. It's be kind. One of the greatest things about COVID, and I say this about COVID, it was the greatest thing that happened to education. You know why? It made us all get uncomfortable. It made us all sharpen our iron. It made us all get better. The greatest teachers I've seen through COVID are the ones that understand you're a human before you're a student. What they do is when class starts, they ask you, how are you doing today? What's going on with you? Talk to me. I ain't worried about the assignment. I don't even want to talk about the homework. I need 10 minutes of how are you? I want to give you a space to talk to me. See, when you educate like that, right? You show the student that they matter and that what's going on in their life matters, and therefore they feel more comfortable to want to do the work. I'm telling you, I'm blessed to be a student. I'm currently an honor student right now, but I'm also a speaker, as you see. And my point is, being on both sides of the fence, I can tell you that students behind closed doors just want to know that they matter. They just want to know that there's an ear. They just want to know that somebody cares about them enough. And when you educate that way, when you educate with human first, you get good fruit. You know, we talk about retention and it being high or low. The way to keep attention right is by making sure that every student in that classroom knows they are empowered, knows that they have a purpose, and knows that they are somebody and they are matter to the school, right? So I'm in there, and I'll never forget, once I saw that the school started embracing me, I started doing my homework a little longer. I started looking up assignments a little more. I started making sure, because what I realized is, wow, Freddie, you got a platform now. I'm getting emails, I'm getting phone calls, all from different students around the campus talking about, hey man, thank you for sharing the story. You made me feel like my story mattered. Thank you for what you're doing. And doing that, I now became a campus leader. I didn't become a campus leader by title. I didn't become a campus leader by different publications. I became a campus leader by the school embracing my story and allowing me to feel like what I got to say and who I am matters. And in doing so, it allowed me to have a platform where I now can travel the country, right? So my first semester, I made a goal. I said, I'm making PTK Honor Society. Now, the remedial courses don't count in your GPA. So I wasn't able to make it my first semester. It hurt. I ain't gonna lie. I cried. I was mad. My mom told me, she said, Freddie, instead of crying, do it again. If you want to be great at something, you want to be consistent, the greats and the legends, they don't do it just one semester. Do it again. Set your goals higher. I said, okay. Next semester, I finally got the PTK. And I'll never forget, man, that day I walked down there, PTK, you walk down the thing and they give you a rose. I had the biggest smile. Listen, if you could have took a picture of my smile, I had my first suit on too, right? I had got my first suit. I had got it all tailored. You couldn't tell me nothing. I had my wifey there, my first counselor for rehab. I'm sitting in the PTK. Thank you. Like, it was like one of the greatest days of my life, right? Like, it was unbelievable. I get in the PTK. Once I get in the PTK, I get my first scholarship, Leaders of Promise scholarship. I was picked out of 200 different students around the country. Now I started to see, wait a minute, Freddie, life ain't over. Life has just begun. And see, that's the thing about being an adult learner. And that's the thing about coming with different issues. You feel like when you're sitting in this classroom and there's 18 and 20-year-olds and you have a 15 to 20-year difference, that your life is over. No, it's not. Your life is actually just beginning. See, what we don't understand is that everybody's journey is different. Some of our journeys start at 18. Some of our journeys start at 40. But one thing I learned, as long as I wake up and as long as I got breath, I got a chance. So I get into PTK. Now I'm rocking and rolling, right? And I need to tell you too, in this, once I got published in the Inquirer, it then started opening up more doors. So Pennsylvania Black Conference on Higher Education. This is how I meet wonderful Miss Christine. And they asked me to do a workshop, and it's called Creating Healthy Lifestyles for Students in Recovery. And my first workshop was, whoo, Miss Christine always tells me I did good, but I look back, that was a very big struggle. Okay. So I get done and I'm all nervous. And I walk up Miss Christine, I'm like, hello, how you doing today? She was so nice. She's who she is. And she said, that was really great. We'd love to have you at Montgomery. And I'm like shaking. And she was like, you did a really good job, and just supportive and I'm like, oh. And I'm looking at her like, maybe I can do this. And I remember coming home that night. She don't know this, but I remember coming home that night thinking like, I think I can do this. Like, her words of encouragement, like her words of support and belief helped me to nurture me and help me to believe. And what I want you all to know is that, understand your doctorate, your title, your master's degree, you taking your Abraxas test, you going through all these different hoops you had to go through. Everybody isn't called to education. Everybody isn't given the platform you're given. Everybody can't handle, and everybody's not as seasoned, not as educated as you. And what you have and what you've been given is your ability to be able to serve others. Understand that when a student looks up to you and they see that doctorate on your name, or they see that title on your name, they look up to you and they revere you because you have something that they're trying to achieve. You have accomplished something that they're looking up to in reverence. And I can tell you, as a student that sits with other students who are in honors and other students who do well, and even other students who struggle, your titles mean something. But I can tell you, if you can mix that title with professionalism, and you can mix that type of title with care, ain't no telling what type of students we can produce. Ain't no telling what type of students and inventors and creators and all kinds of stuff we can do. I tell people all the time, the best way to educate, excuse me, is to be professional and have a heart. Sometimes we think we got to switch it. We don't. You can be both, and in being both is how you get the best fruit. So that summer, we go to Washington, D.C., me and my wife, and I told her, I said, we need to go to D.C. because I need to get history in me. I need to remind myself where we're at. We're down DC and we're having fun and we're running around and we're doing the bike thing. And I'm just happy to be down DC. I'm in every museum. I'm just, you can't tell me nothing, right? And we get the Martin Luther King statue. And I look up and I said, you know, he would finally be proud of me. For so long, I was part of the problem. Now I'm part of the solution. And I looked up at that statue and I said, this is my keynote. What is your legacy? And the reason I've entitled this, What is Your Legacy? Is because one of the greatest things that's been going on in education, at least for the last year since COVID, is we all have had to sit back down at the table and ask ourselves, why am I doing this? What am I here for? You know, like, why am I really here? What about it? Well, let me tell you why you're really here. You're here because a student like Freddie that came in that didn't know nothing, that didn't understand nothing, that didn't know about education, you molded me into a professional. You're here because there's a student that's not at home that has elderberry and reading updated scholarship and traveling the country. And, you know, there's students at home, and we need to understand that that's taking care of their sister and their brother. They got a mom or dad that's getting high and, you know, using drugs, and their house is just out of, you're there to help them. You're there to ensure that that student can get an education so that their child and their loved ones and the people behind them can say, look what mommy did. That's why you're here. So if you're wondering, and I know it, listen, I get it, right? Education right now is stressing us all out. Students ain't showing up. We can't get in touch with nobody. Folks ain't putting on their cameras. We feel like we're just talking to boxes. People turning this stuff late. People ain't turning nothing in. Ain't nobody coming. Phones ain't getting answered. I get it. But let me tell you something I've learned. To much is given, much is required. Understand that when you walk into this building, because of your education and because of what you know, you are tasked with something that many people cannot do. That's why you've been called to this position, because you're that talented, you're that smart, you're that educated, that you can help somebody who's in a lesser position than you achieve higher grades. Trust me, I know, because it happened to me. Because a president, because of provost, because academic departments surrounded me, empowered me, and made me believe. By God's grace and mercy, I now have a 2-page CV, all field speaking engagements. When I first was told to do a CV, I didn't even know what it was. The curriculum vitae, I thought it was something in Greek. I swear to God, I had no idea. Listen, when I first submitted my first one, I had on there, I'm a worker at Panera and I speak to people. It was a half a page. They sent it back and said, tell us any publications you got. I said, I got the Philadelphia Inquirer. That was my CV. Right? Like I didn't know what none of this stuff meant. I didn't understand what publications meant. We need to understand as people in education and faculty, we understand the language, but the students don't. It's our job to teach that to them, right? So my last semester at Delaware County Community College, I couldn't ask for nothing better. I'm sitting in the PTK meeting, and in that meeting, I found out that I was selected for the PA All-State Academic Team. I cried. I still get emotional now, man. Like, to think that I was eating out of a dumpster and now I'm on the Pennsylvania All-State Academic Team. And what that means is I got a full ride to any Posse school in the state. That means that my bachelor will be paid for. I called my mom, and forgive my tears, but I called my mom and I said, Mom, like, I got a full ride. She said, Freddie, I can go to my grave and sleep well because of the man that you become. I can't tell you what it feels like. I can't tell you what it feels like to know, like, that I'm somebody now, that I'm actually making a difference now, that, like, I matter now, right? Because, you know, there's this stigma about community college. We're no fools. right? Like you think that I'm just at a community college and, that's all I am. Oh, no, you're at a community college. That means something. You have a place in this world. You're educated. You can do things. Man, before I knew it, that school had sent me to five different cities in 6 weeks. Before I left the Delaware County Community College, I had a full-time motivational speaking company. I was writing blogs, and on top of that, I was getting my grades. I left out of there with a 3.74 high honors GPA. I graduated at the top of my class. I had an administrator tell me, he said, Freddie, thank you for what you've done at this school. In 50 years, when we're talking about this school, because of the things you've done, we can't mention it without bringing your name up. You know what that made me feel like? And the greatest thing about it, once I got this platform, I was empowering other people to empower other people. There were students behind me that were watching. So now I have a flock of people that I'm mentoring. And guess what? The people that are opening up doors for me, guess what I do? I open it up doors for them. And before we know it, we got a chain now. And now I got mentees that are at Westchester, and I got mentees that are at Delaware County Community College. And we just keep moving this thing, right? So I get to Westchester, and listen, COVID hits. Now, if you know me, you know I'm an in-person energy guy. You mean to tell me I got to do school online? Half of my grade is being myself, right? Like, what? So let me tell you what I do. Let me give you a tutorial. I email my teachers a month before class. You know why I do that? Because I'm setting up a rapport. You know what I do when I email them? I'm asking them questions. First of all, I want you to know I'm a student that goes to the Office of Disabilities. Okay, I have extra timing on my test. I'm a person in mental health. I'm a person that takes mental health medication. I'm a student in recovery. From the door, you need to know who I am because you need to know who's walking through your classroom. Then I ask them, what books are you reading? Then I ask them, what conferences do you know? Then I asked them, what academic journals do you think that I could apply to would be good for my writing? Then I asked them, I'm sending you my stuff. Can you put an eye on it because you have education and because you've seen it? And can you tell me where I need to get better? I don't ask how it's good. I ask, how can I get better? You know why I'm doing that? Because iron sharpens iron. I need to see where I can improve. And I trust the people in these positions to tell me because they got there for a reason. You know what I realize about educators when I'm looking at them? Wait a minute, Freddie. They just started before me. They're you. They've been through the same journey you've been through. They were an undergrad student at once. If you got your doctorate, you were a master's student at once. If you got your master's, you were an undergrad student at once. If you're an undergrad student, you were getting your associates at one time. They're me. They just happen to be on their journey farther along. Who greater to ask? So I email. If they get back at me, I know what the report's going to be. If they don't, I used to get mad. Then I realized, Freddie, they have 30 students in 5 classes. You're not the only person they have to answer to. Hello, you know what you can do? You can send them another email. Or guess what? They have this thing called office hours. Check in. So I started learning. So I would go in and I would sit down and I would talk to them. And I would say to them, hey, my name's Freddie. I just want to start a rapport. In doing that, it's opened up doors for me that I would have never known. Professionally, personally, it's opened up doors. Guess what else I learned? You get more bees with honey. See, when they're grading my paper, because they know I care, because they know I'm studying extra, because they know I'm going harder, it makes them more willing and more adapt to be able to help me. They want to help all students. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. They want to help all students, but they're human. And it's definitely makes it easier to help a student who you see is more apt to do the work. I've seen this. My one biology teacher, I swear I didn't like this teacher. And I'll tell her this when I see her, I couldn't stand her. I now love her. You know why? She made me a better student. She made me learn how to work harder. Tell you something she did for me. When I watch Frontline documentary, I think they're wonderful. They're one of the only news stations that don't get on my nerves because many of them do, right? So when I watch Frontline, what she taught me was when you're watching it, take the pictures of the professors that come up and email them. Take pictures, stop the thing, email, look them up, follow them on LinkedIn. Do you know by me doing that, I connected and got a speaking engagement out of that? Do you know by just doing the one simplest thing? I took a picture of a professor. I emailed that professor. That professor got back to me and said, let me connect you with the campus life department. They connected me with the campus life department. Voila. That simple, right? Like it's things like that that sometimes as educators and faculty, we forget. Those are the type of little nitbits of information that if we pass on, you don't know what that can do for a student. So I'm at Westchester University right now. And let me tell you how good life is. First of all, in my recovery journey, and I need you to understand this, everybody asks how they would have been doing so well. But one of the reasons is you need to understand that I live a life of health before I even enter the building. Okay. I come to class, prayed up. I'm a Christian. That's what works best for Freddie. I'm open to anything as long as it's positive. I walk in, prayed up, medication, eating healthy, working out. Let me be very clear. I ain't perfect at none of that. But one thing I am is consistent. Working out, eating healthy, prayer, meditation, yoga, okay, fellowshipping in my recovery, being around other people that are like me, talking to them, therapist. I have a therapist. It is very important that I have a therapist. Trust me, it's better for the world that I have a therapist. And my therapist is wonderful. She should be getting paid triple for how she treats me. She's on speed dial. She's great. I journal. I live in a home where my wife is getting her master's. She's an RN by God's grace and mercy, and she will have her master's next year. I graduate my bachelor's and she graduates with her master's next year. It's a miracle. She's also in recovery. She has 6 years. I'm in a supportive relationship. One thing I've learned about relationships, healthy people are not attracted to unhealthy people. Because I'm with her and she's been able to uplift me. I remember being in class. I'll never forget this. I was at class and she texted me and said, "Hi, Freddie, good morning." I said, "Hello." She said, "I'm going back to school." I said, "Why are you going back to school?" She said, "Seeing you work hard makes me want to work hard." See, I didn't even realize how powerful education was and how hard that work was, because what that did was it resonated with my home and it made my wife want to go back to school. I grew up in a single parent home in recovery. I'm now going to have a home of 2 parents where we're both educated and both sober. Education helped me break a cycle. Education literally changed the course of my natural life. So, yeah, I'm at Westchester. I sign up. I'm taking 15 credits my first semester. I sign up for the honors college. I apply, I get accepted to the honors college. I'm now taking 18 credits. I'm taking my first social media internship. Our book, Journey to South Africa, just got accepted for publication in our honors college. I'm working with Dr. Tish. We call her Dr. Tish, Professor Tish. She's wonderful. She's a family member. She's awesome. She's been a new mentor to me. She's teaching me a lot about higher education. She's teaching me the jargon. She sits down with me. She talks to me. She's very hard on me as far as the schooling because she believes in me and knows I can do it. And when I say she's hard on me, she's not mean. She just ensures that I get it right. And I like that. And she challenges me. And, and I'm doing this internship, and I can be honest with you, my brain is so stuck to being able to do A's and B's. One of the things that she's teaching me is how to take the knowledge and apply it. And that's what it's good about an internship. And I can't wait to tell the students this tomorrow. An internship is teaching me how not to focus on the GPA, but to focus on the work. And that's one of the things I had to learn. But that's what's great about an internship and what's great about education and faculty is that they can teach you this transition, right? So I'm doing that. Recently, I just had my first national keynote. I addressed over 900 people virtually, right? Like, things are the greatest it's ever seen. By God's grace, this week I have 5 different keynotes scheduled. 2 of them are with Montgomery. I have 2 articles that's out right now. I've just been selected for Real College and Slack membership. Real College is through Temple. They're doing enormous things, basic needs on campus. They're fighting for resources, all this stuff. My point to you is, and if you didn't get nothing out of me today, here's what I want you to understand. I want you to understand that I walked into college as myself. When I walked into a classroom, I walked in there scared. I walked in there with low self-esteem, and I walked in there feeling like I'm not good enough. But because people like you, because people in higher ed took the time to sit down with me and find out where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what's going on with me, it has allowed me to see heights and to see things I've never seen in my life. It has allowed me to do things and be places I've never been in my life. It has allowed me to have doors open that I've never seen. And while I'm on this, I want to speak about both sides, because I'm telling you all the positive and the beautiful, but you need to understand some doors I've run into and some not so good situations, because that's honestly fair. So I was at a conference. I'm not going to name the conference because I don't want the conference to look bad. It was a national conference. It was a beautiful conference, but I had something that woke me up in higher ed. So I'm at this conference, and it's all administrators and provosts and all these people. And I'll never forget this. And I tell Christine this story all the time. So I'm in there, and I'm giving my what they call elevator speech, right? They call it elevator speech. Back in the day, it was, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't elevator speech. So I'm in there. I'm like, hello, my name's Fred. Now, listen, I know I ain't for everybody. I'm an energy guy. I'm happy. I'm good. I know I ain't for everybody, because I know everybody ain't having a good day. But when you ate out the dumpster and you don't have to live like that no more, you're having a good day. Trust me. So I'm in there, and I'm happy, and I'm talking and everything. And I could tell, looking back, that the lady was like, whoa, right? So I'm like, hello, I'm just happy to be here. I know this might be normal for you, but it ain't for me, right? So they had a bar set up, right? Now, I don't drink. I'm in recovery. So I asked the guy for a mocktail. I was like, can I get a whole, and he's looking at me crazy, right? He couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'd like pineapple juice and cranberry juice. And he was like, are you 21? I'm like, yeah. I was like, my name's Freddie. I'm just happy to be here, right? So I'm in there. And I'll never forget, I get a lady my elevator speech. I said, my name is Frederick. I'm blessed to wear 2 hats. One hat is I'm an honor student. Another hat is I have a motivational speaking company. And she says to me, I'll never forget this. She said, son, first of all, she called me son. She said, what are you doing keynote national conferences and you haven't even gotten your doctorate yet? And when she said that to me, right now, understand this. I want to be clear. I didn't know this existed because everybody I ran into treated me like I'm equal. And when she said this, I just quickly said, and it's not one of my proudest moments, but I'm being honest, and this is where I was at. I said, did you eat out of a dumpster? She said, no. I said, well, I guess we both didn't pay our dues. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I said, have a good night. She said, you too. And that's what it was. And you know what the funny thing about that was? And I went and I told the people that were with me, God bless them. They said to me, Freddie, you're here because you deserve to be here. You're here because you're talented, and you're here because your story matters. Don't you let nobody tell you you ain't equal, and don't you let nobody tell you you don't count. We should be learning from you, because our job is to serve. What we should be asking ourselves is, how can we pull out that from these other classrooms? And that's what I want to break down to you. Listen, when you see a classroom, if you're a teacher or an educator and you walk in a classroom, right, and you got 30 students, here's what I need you to understand. There's going to be 5 students in there that are killing it, that are doing everything right, that are knocking it all out the park. And then you're going to have a student in there that smells. Then you're going to have a student in there that's nodding off. Then you're going to have a student in there that might be drunk. Then you're going to have a student in there that might be yelling and arguing. But you need to understand, don't take that personal. Instead of sending him, the academic letters or the consequences, why don't you take the time to ask that person to stay after class and talk to them? Why don't you take the time to ask them, how are you and how can I help you? What direction can I point you in to get the best out of you? What I need you to understand is, in doing that, we create a climate on campus where we all matter. See, the greatest thing about Delaware County and Westchester for me was that the janitor and the lunch lady mattered too. They would sit and talk to me after class. I would have conversation with them. When I was weary, when I didn't believe in myself, they say, Freddie, keep your head up. We're counting on you now. See, those are conversations and things that you don't hear, but that's the beauty of education. Community college stands for community. That community is a village. And trust me, the old thing is, it takes a village to raise a child. You're right. Because without that village, I'm not at where I'm at. Without that village, I'm not doing the things I'm doing. Without that village, I don't have no publication. I don't have no speaking company. I'm not a family man. I don't have the things I got today. W.E.D. Du Bois was right. Education is not supposed to just teach work. It's supposed to teach life. That's the whole point of this. That's the greatest gift about education. I want everybody to understand. I want everybody to know that I love school. I love it. I love the late nights. I love the papers. I love the group projects. I love those things. I'm going to get 2 degrees when I graduate. The first degree they're going to get is going to be the one that I'm going to hang on my wall forever. But the second degree I'm going to get is the intangible life lessons I've learned that you can't account for. I want you to understand that please know that just because COVID's here doesn't mean that you don't matter. If anything, your job has gotten more important. There are students that are counting on you. There are students that are looking up to you for some answers. You know, the Washington Post just reported a couple months ago, last year we had over 300,000 deaths at last year due to drugs and alcohol and overdoses. To think that that hasn't hit education, we would be foolish. I advise you all and I ask you all today to ask yourselves, what you see in education that's wrong, my question to you is, what can you do? What can you do to make it better? What resources, what networks do you have? Because when you're done, you're leaving a legacy. Understand, every day you walk in that building, you're leaving a footprint. And that footprint is going to be followed by other footprints. My question to you today is, what is your legacy? What are you leaving? When you lay your head down at night and you're thinking, that crazy young black guy was screaming and yelling, he's asking, what is my legacy? My question is, what is my legacy? What do I want the education world to know about why I was here and what I was meant to do and who I was meant to serve? If you answer that question, trust me, what you'll come to, your legacy is to serve. And when you serve, you help people like Freddie that come in with nothing and leave as an educated, mature family man who is now blessed to address the community. I was able to sit on a Friday night with my wife eating burgers my wife cooked, and I saw myself on the news. You know what that meant to sit there, and I'll never forget, I always get in my mind, a lady says, a local man has changed his life. I stood up and said, thank you, Jesus. I couldn't believe that my story mattered that much, but because of people like you. So thank you for allowing me to share. I want to leave time for questions. Bless you all, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Thank you, Freddie. As always, it was wonderful. And I think every time I hear you speak, I feel so moved. And it just reminds me of how important that one phone call we make, or that one student that we check in on, the difference that one student makes. Does anybody have any questions or comments you'd like to share? Be quiet. I was going to say, Michael.
Hey, Freddie, it's good to see you again. And Christine, Act 101 team, I appreciate you all for extending the invitation. I was coming out of another meeting, so I did catch you about halfway through, but I was like, I remember this Freddie guy from before, and I have to make sure I come in and support this young man and to listen and to hear from this young man. And I mean, you just said some things that I think not only am I 100% in agreement with, but they resonate. And they're super important, man. You know, we are all part of a village. One of the things about working from home, fortunately or unfortunately, I'll let you guys be the judge of it, but I find myself when I get off work watching more television with my wife. And one of the shows we were watching recently was a judge show, and there was a young lady on there who was trying to find out who the father of her child was, and just had multiple people. And the judge said something to her that made her cry. She got emotional. The judge said, you know, was your father in your life? And, you know, she really got emotional. Apparently, both of her parents were not in her life since a young age. And it was resulting in a lot of the decisions that she were making, which were not great decisions. And that just resonates again to that point of being that village. And that village can be people who are working in higher education, like Freddie and the folks who are on this call. We don't know what these people are going through in their households. So, you know, I take that and I hold that in. And when you talk about legacy, I think that's something that I want to intrinsically hold as part of my legacy, to be part of the village for folks who might not be getting it at home, you know, who might not have that family structure. And I appreciate you sharing that. And that's just one nugget that I'm taking with me, and we'll share with the members of my team out of admissions here at Monco. So thank you, Frederick, for being here. I really mean it.
Oh, bless you. And thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. And I really appreciate your humbling words. And you're right. It's a village. We've gotten to where we've gotten because we had support. You don't get your master's or doctorate or any degree without support.
Amen.
Bless you, brother. Thank you.
And for those who did come in late, I did record this. I will send that out if you were interested in watching from the beginning. Ingrid has a question here. She was asking, how instrumental was the KEYS program to your development and support?
Okay, so if I could break my degree up into chunks, the KEYS program has a chunk of it. Let me tell you why. Number one, they were positive. They embraced me. They paid for every book. I don't think did I pay for, I don't even remember paying for a book. They gave me things like pens, paper, and pencils. You know, that stuff costs money. You know, Staples isn't free. They helped me with scheduling classes. They got a monthly, by every midterm, they would reach out to my professors and they would ask them how I'm doing, which would let them know where I'm at. My case manager cared about me, not just in the classroom, but outside of it. It was one of the best programs I've ever seen. I wish it was at four-year schools, but the Keys program, I am an advocate. And without that, I do not believe I get through Delaware County Community College. It's one of the best programs I've ever seen.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Feel free to unmute yourselves. Fernando, did you have a question?
Hey, Freddie, how are you, man? Good to see
Good,
you.
I'm blessed. Good to see you, brother.
So I've known you since the very, very beginning,
Yeah.
really. And I'm really proud to know you, number one. And number two, I mean, you're the kind of student that makes my work that much more rewarding, man. I just want to say, I've seen you grow. I've seen you become the man that you are today, that everyone sees, you know, that you are today. But I just want to, I know you always talk about this, and but I want you to talk a little bit more, because you and I haven't talked about it, but I want to know your view about what you think the importance is of learning how to write effectively in your journey. You know, as a writing teacher, I want to know, you know, what you think of your ability, because obviously you weren't writing before you got into college, and now you're writing a lot. Your work, I know that you and I talked about how we're going to talk later on about your book that you're working on as well. And I just think that sometimes students don't really realize the importance of learning how to write effectively in their own journey of success, really.
Yeah.
Because I think that people, in my view, especially in my experience with my students think that writing is an easy thing. Like, well, I've been writing since I was 5 years old, you know, my name, and, you know, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the kind of writing that makes you a successful professional. What role does that play for you?
Yeah, bless you. Thank you. You've been wonderful. I'll never forget the conversation we had outside of Pennsylvania Black Conference. You told me, you said you have the talent, now you got to write.
Right. I always tell you that, man.
You told me that.
I always tell you, practice writing, write more, and read more. That makes you a better writer.
Absolutely. So here's your answer. You were right. I didn't even realize at the time.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you were right. You were, and I tell my mentees that now, so you know that. It's major. So I'm glad you asked me that, because I can tell you a nugget I was told. So I was speaking at Missouri Mental Health Impact Summit, and the other keynote, I was talking to her. I was like, how are you getting your speaking engagements? I feel like I got to send 1,000 emails out. She said, get your book out. She said, the book. I
told you that too.
She told me, she said, get your book out. She said, when my book came out, I never called for another speaking engagement. They call me now.
Exactly.
The book is the business card. Yep. And what I'm learning, first of all, my first English teacher told me this: there's never a perfect paper. There's no such thing.
That's true.
So writing is critical, to the point where when you had given me that information, one of the things I started doing, I always submit my paper to Smart Thinking. I never turn in anything without submitting to Smart Thinking, and they look at it 5 different ways. Now, that was the beginning of it. Now where I'm at is Westchester is teaching me how to be a scholar, and it's different. The way, like, I didn't know when you read a scholarship, when you read scholarship, you don't start at the abstract. I didn't know that. I didn't know, like I said, Dr. Tish, she's unbelievable to me. She's great. She's teaching me. I'm learning. I've learned. I had a class last semester where with Dr. Martin, she doesn't. I wasn't allowed to use this, that, these, or those. I almost cried. I'm like, how do you want me to write without using those? But what that did was, it made me learn better vocabulary.
Right.
It made me learn sentence structure. Writing is critical, because another thing I'm seeing too is to get into some of these academic journals and to get in some of this stuff, they're not accepting anything. And you got to be right. So yeah, I'm getting better. That's what I'm working on. I'm getting better.
Good. Well, good to hear
You're
that.
right. Yeah, you're 100. Thank you. You're 100% right.
Great tips. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.
All right.